You're becoming a wedding photographer, right? Your website's up, you got everything going, you're ready to go, you've got your price list. We need a client, right? You need to get somebody. So how do you get your first client? There's a million ways. Chances are, if you're starting to look into wedding photography, people have already asked you, or you're into photography already, or you're trying to get going. The biggest thing for me has really been word of mouth. So it tends to help if you're in the younger kind of bracket and you have friends who are getting married, you have friends of friends who are getting married, you have friends of friends of friends who are getting married. That's kind of usually how you kind of start your clientele and start your first shoots. Chances are you probably already know someone. So get on Facebook, announce that you're trying to do being a wedding photography business. You can link your website there where people can check out some of your portfolio. Chances are you might also need to start shooting a couple weddings for free to get your portfolio going. Or if you have a couple of friends who need engagement shoots, you can kind of do that. So Facebook, get on social media, get on Instagram, get on Twitter, whatever you're big on in social media, just start blasting out that you are starting to take photos now and you are starting to become a wedding photographer. That's the quickest way. That starts the ball rolling as far as word of mouth through your friends and through your immediate social network. If you already have a 9-to-5 job, start dropping the hint that like, hey, I'm starting to take photos if you guys need stuff. That's going to get you the quickest amount of pushes and clicks and stuff like that. The biggest thing though is to make sure your website's up, make sure you have someone somewhere that they can go, because if you start mentioning that you're a photographer and they have nowhere to go, it's going to be kind of rough, and you want to present yourself in a really good fashion. Once you start that going, there's also other ways to do it. There's mixers in your local area depending on where you live. There's business networking groups like BNI. It's something that I belong to, where you kind of go to every week and you learn how to pitch ideas, but you also start building a network. The biggest thing in freelance work and in business as far as photography goes is networking. Networking's huge. So as long as you can start meeting people and people start to drop your name, they start to see your work, you will start to get work. It does take some time. I would say as a wedding photographer, it took me about 1.5 years to really get cooking. It takes a little time, but as long as you put in the work and you present yourself and you're ready to go, things will get easier. As far as once you start talking to people, you want to set up a meeting. You want to sit down at your local coffee shop if you don't have a place to go. You want to go grab a bite to eat or grab a drink or whatever. As soon as you sit down and talk to someone, that's when you're going to start to really get to know them and really start pitching yourself as a salesman. I think the biggest thing for couples is that they trust their photographer. They have to like their images, of course, but they also want to be comfortable because it's going to be really stressful for them. And I think that's the biggest selling point for me anyway. So once you get that meeting, you want to just kind of get to know who they are and kind of pitch yourself as a person and as a photographer. Bring some samples maybe, just kind of talk to them and calm them down. I think building a wedding is very stressful for a couple. So if you can kind of present that you're the guy, you're the lady, you're the calm enough to really be their photographer, I think that's the most important thing. That's where you're really going to excel and make that final sale. If you can present yourself in a great manner and as a salesperson, they will love to have you shoot their wedding. Another way to get those meetings is to possibly join a business networking group like I mentioned before, but there's also wedding conventions and there's also wedding booths. I haven't had a ton of success with those. Those tend to be kind of expensive, where you can get a booth for like $600 or sometimes like $1,500, where you just set up and brides are just coming in and out, in and out, in and out. It's kind of like a cattle call where you set up your booth. I don't know. Those I've gotten a couple weddings from those, and if you can get one wedding off of that, it kind of pays for itself. But it's also kind of stressful. So it depends on how you want to present yourself and how you want to show who you are. Those, if you don't have a network already built up, it might be a good idea to start to get to know vendors and stuff. It's a good idea just to do one to kind of see the entire wedding industry. If you start to build relationships with other vendors like DJs, videographers, or florists, or even if you kind of break into a venue, those will also be good ways to get your first customer. Those are more towards later. Once you've built up a kind of a company, you can use those to keep getting consistent work.